We stayed to record a private meeting, unlike any that had ever taken place in front of cameras. Leaders of their delegations, Afrikaners and ANC, kept talking.
What some of us are saying in this discussion is take what may be what has been called a quantum leap. Imagine yourself outside of these current processes of white politics. Yes. Now, imagine a situation where Van Zyl Slabbert stands, he joins the ANC. I hope one day he will do that. He joins the ANC and he stands as an ANC candidate in Waterkloof in Pretoria. He's white, he's Afrikaner, and he says to this constituency, we want a non-racial and a democratic South Africa. We want a South Africa where you'll have the right to use your Afrikaans language. You'll have the right to belong to the Dutch Reformed Church. Nobody's going to despise you. Nobody's going to nationalize your house. You'll have a situation where there'll be peace, where there will no longer be a need to put a policeman at every street corner, armed. That's the kind of future we want to build up. And here I stand representing this organization which says those things, vote for me. I think he would stand a very, very strong chance of being elected.
What I'm thinking is, how do we get to at that stage? You know, it could be that you know, through various means, get the government to the negotiating table, and they say, okay, we form a government which is genuinely democratic. That could be. It could also be that it wouldn't come about that way, and that we could then see, but how can we then win acceptance for you coming into the country?
In confronting South Africa's future, they discovered again the need to confront their past.
Just take the question of history teaching in syllabus. Wouldn't it be better, wouldn't it be easier for whites if whites could feel, okay, we've got these whites still in control of state schools, or you could be semi-private schools, and that they rather sort of preside over the transition where we change the history so that whites don't get quite a quick shock. They say, oh, hell, I never knew such a history existed.
Maybe the best thing for our country, maybe the best thing is that the quantum leap that Thabo is speaking about needs to have our people catapulted into it.
Herman, look, what has been wrong with South African history is not that all the heroes were white and all the villains are black. What was wrong with South African history is that it was falsified. I mean, the very notion that South African history commences with the landing of Jan van Riebeeck, I mean, that is a falsification. You see, now if you start from that premise, you are bound to end up with that sort of lie, you see, which is in the history books.
I'll never forget the first time I went to the Kango Caves. They switched off the lights and they put on nice glowing lights and soft music there in Oudtshoorn. Yeah. And there was a voice that boomed through this huge cavern saying, the history of South Africa started with the arrival of the white man in 1600. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life, or heard in my life. But you see, that is what the average young Afrikaner is conditioned to. That you are not part of his history.
You see, for instance, Herman says, I mean, what are we going to do now? History at the moment has got white heroes. The future history will have black heroes. That's not. You see, again, it's taking, as I'm saying, this frozen racist past. Yeah. There are white heroes. There are very many white heroes. Afrikaner white heroes.
And there are black villains.
And there are tremendous black villains. I know
Reverend McLean.
And they must appear as villains. And that's the context in which this future has got to operate.
Does the real resistance to change not lie in the civil service? You know, that's where the army, the bureaucrats, who actually depend on the continuation of that state for their subsistence, for their livelihood, for their privilege. And in South Africa, it's a fact that there are about 600,000 whites who are totally dependent on the continuation of the state structure for their survival. And that's where the real resistance lies. How do we cope with that? That to me is the crunch of transition in South Africa. We've just bureaucratized ourselves into a position of impasse.
This point is very central to how we move from here to there.
Yeah.
We've got to battle very, very hard to move as much of white South Africa as possible, to understand that the security, we're talking about Afrikaners, the security of the Afrikaner people lies in a democratic South Africa. The thing that was produced, apartheid, to ensure the security of the Afrikaner people is the thing that's produced this crisis.
That's undemocratic. So
You see, we've got to get this message across. It's not easy. We can't pretend it's easy. It's very difficult. We've got an opposing force which is going to resist this. But it's a very important process of how we get from here to there, to get white South Africa to understand that they've got a place in this future, and that even in terms of self-interest, you know, let's have democracy.
The one thing that should not happen is to consolidate those people, to strengthen them, to assist in the extension of patronage and the extension of co-option. And this is a new area for us. In fact, I think it's an area which somehow is different to the kind of struggles in Russia in 1917 or in China or in France. There are elements that we can take there and learn from. But we have a problem here that
I mean, we can learn something from the Russian Revolution.
can certainly learn something from the Russian Revolution. How to avoid the mistakes they made.
The conference had ended, but not the journey.